Hello and welcome to the State of Care podcast. My name is Janice and I'm your host today. Our guest for this episode is an anxiety warrior who writes and speaks about innovative ways to conquer anxiety. Her debut novel, The Grace of Crows, is about a woman overcoming debilitating fear and irrational worry. Let us all welcome Tracy Shawn.
State of care.
Hi, good morning. I know it's pretty early there.
Uh, it's 9 o'clock, but I'm not a morning person, but I had a lot of coffee. So there we go.
Oh, I can relate to that though. I'm not a morning person myself, but coffee does the trick. Initially, the account that we first followed was the Conquer Worry. So
Correct.
yeah, because this said care home really focuses on young persons, not the usual care home for the elderly. So we understand that young persons they find it challenging nowadays regarding their mental health. They find it challenging, and so as a care home, we just don't give their needs in a physical sense. So we'd love to venture more on the said topic. That was why the Twitter handle really resonated with us. And then it was very fortunate that I got to know you and follow your personal account. So, and it was also interesting to know that you are an author. So I understand that we should be talking about anxiety and all that, but I'd like to get to know you first as an author, if that's all right with you.
Oh, of course it
It
is.
was
I,
really cool. So um I was able to like look you up and read the excerpt of your book. So really right now it's an honor. I
oh,
it's not every day that I get to see or talk to an author and an award winning at that. So I before we go any further, I'd really just to thank you for giving me the time of the day.
well, thank you. I'm just an indie author. My debut novel, The Grace of Crows, was published under a small press, and I got indie awards. So I'm not at all. This is an honor for me. So let me just say, it's mutual. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, well, it's still interesting. So first off, I'd like to know what is an author's life like?
That's a good question. That's a very insightful question. Thank you for asking that. Because I saw a survey where a lot of women, that's their dream job is to be an author. And it is, in many ways, it is a dream job because both I love writing both nonfiction. I write nonfiction articles and, of course, fiction. I'm about to launch the second novel, and I love them both for different reasons. But what is an author's life like? It's a lot of putting yourself in a chair. There, you don't wait for the muse. You write almost every single day, whether you feel like it or not, and then you start writing, and then the muse comes. And it's a lot of, well, I'd have to say, for myself and many, many, many other authors, there's a lot of self doubt. Uh, you know, is anyone going to read this? I want as many readers to find it as possible. So, there, as my husband said to me, I have never seen anyone work as hard as you for so little money. And he's right, but he's right for many authors. And
Yeah.
but it is for me, especially because I have a monkey brain, and I'm always, not always, but oftentimes I'm ruminating and I'm overthinking and I'm worrying, and and I have anxiety. And what I find is when I sit down and write and I'm in my zone, it
Exactly.
goes away. And so that is, it's a wonderful gift to be able to have the the privilege of writing.
Right. So that's what made me really interested when you said that it's a dream of many. It is. it's a personal dream as well. And like you, I can resonate with the fact that when once you hold a pen and just start writing it down, whether like you, whether you create fiction or nonfiction. As for me, I guess others around my age or my peers would relate that journaling is a very helpful tool. I would start the day stressing out what needs to be done. And I have to journal it so that I can release any stress, like, and plan out, and be reminded that whatever is not in our control shouldn't be controlled. I think, I don't know, we're not yet halfway to our conversation, but I personally think that, I don't know, it's just me, but do you feel the same? Like, the frustration comes from tricking ourselves in controlling many things, and some of those things aren't controllable to begin with. So I think the frustration stems there. What do you think about that? Do you also have those kinds of situations? What frustrates you as a writer?
Okay. Well, let me go back to your first, what you were saying, and let me just make sure I heard it correctly. So you're saying that a lot of people's frustrations is that there are things in our culture, our society, the world that we just can't change. Is that what you were saying? There's that frustration? Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, I personally think that there are two things. No, there are things that we can control, our emotions, our time, our priorities. And there are things that we cannot control, the time of
Right.
others, priorities of others, and even the opinion of others. But the
Correct.
thing
Yeah.
is, I think, and what I see among my peers is that um, they try to control things that they cannot. They try so hard to influence and in the guise of pleasing others. And in
Mm,
turn, it saps out their passion, it saps out their interest, their joy. And I think it's being replaced with frustration. When to begin with, there are things that we shouldn't control and just let be. And I think, I don't know, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think where our energies should lie are on the things that we can control, you know?
I agree with you. And I think that, well, being nearly 60 years old now, I,
It doesn't
I,
show. Believe me when I say it doesn't show. I was
oh,
thinking you were from your photo on Twitter, it
oh yeah,
doesn't
well,
show at all.
I almost, that, you know how photos are. I've aged since, that was only 3 years ago, but I've aged since then, but that's okay. I'm accepting my age. This is good. Uh, but what I would say with my age and looking back is I had a hard time understanding my true self versus what we get fed by culture. And a lot of our culture is very masculine based, work really hard, make money, be successful,
Mm-hmm.
and, move fast, be a, mover shaker. And the
Exactly.
why I have energy right now is because I did drink a lot of coffee this morning. But I've come over the years, I've come to realize, guess what? I'm not a mover shaker. I'm a slow person by nature. I move slowly. I think slowly. I cannot get as much done as the kind of people that are like really quick thinking, real quick moving.
Quick on their
And I,
feet. Yeah, yeah.
at this age, have come to realize I need to look at my true nature. Who am I emotionally, physiologically, and all that. And so that would be one of the things I would say to younger people is to really look at your true nature. And, success, yes, obviously, we have to pay our bills, we have to buy food, we have to pay rent. There is that real factor in there, that we have to make money.
Right.
But does that mean staying in a job you absolutely can't stand for more money? Or does that mean maybe taking a position that's more you for less money, and then maybe you can't afford to travel as much or go out as much, life is full of compromises. But I think that you have to look at the bottom line of what will on a long-term basis and a day-to-day basis bring you as much joy and peace as possible.
Right. So this set reasoning led you to the path of writing. Am I right?
Correct. Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
And I think, and I can feel that you totally enjoy the path that you've chosen, which makes me wonder what led you to creating the Twitter handle Conquer Worry, which
Oh,
I believe has a very strong following,
it
200,000 more or less, right?
okay. So I have to tell you that it's let me make sure I say his whole name. It's S.J. Coulter. This is probably I don't know. I'm probably holding this. I don't know if he is the one that started the Conquer Worry
Oh,
handle. He wrote Conquer Worry, How to Build a Simple Daily System to Reduce Stress. And we connected on Twitter because he saw I was writing a lot about anxiety and stress, and then eventually asked me if I wanted to tweet for Conquer Worry because he's so busy with
mm,
other. And so I just tweet for that. He created that handle, created that, the Conquer Worry, the whole realm of that. So, and he
uh-huh,
is a wonderful man, and
uh-huh.
really a big part of his mission is to help people deal with worry and stress and anxiety. So I
Which
really
I
recommend the book, by the way.
Oh yeah. I was wondering where I could get a copy for myself. And you are so right regarding the anxiety, the worry, and the stress, which I think abounds now more than ever,
Yes, yeah.
given this situation, this limiting situation that we have right now. Regardless of where we are, we've been really hit by the pandemic, and it's such a change in the course of how we live generally. So I think everything that has happened in the past year has been really stress inducing and has caused anxiety to more people than it should, and I really think that although it is your peers brainchild, the Conquer Worry, I really think that whatever you tweet there, well, I also follow it, not just the work account, but it really helps people. Which leads me to this next question, and I'm honestly curious. Since you tweet on the handle, on Conquer Worry, personally, how do you handle your worry, your anxiety?
That's a that is another awesome question.
I'm totally curious, there are some people who would love to just give up pieces of advice and
I,
live with those advice. And there are those that are just giving out them free, but not living for them. So it makes me wonder.
yeah, it does. And here's the deal. So I'd say almost well, let's just say all the tweets and all of the articles I write about how to deal with stress, how to deal with anxiety, it's because I'm trying to help myself. It's, it's like
So
I'll
that's
research
where it's coming from.
it coming from. And then when I research it and then when I write it, it does help me. And I, through the years, I would say there's many paths, but the message that I want to give to people here, elsewhere, is what has worked for someone else may or may not work for you. What has not worked for you in the past may work for you today. So, and I think there's many, many paths. Some people take anti-anxiety meds for a time, if not for a long term. Some people use meditation, yoga, they use diet, they use self-help talk. For me personally, it was a combination of one night I couldn't sleep because of the anxiety, and I saw this info commercial, Lucinda Bassett and the Midwest Center for Anxiety Depression. And this was so long ago, they were cassette tapes. I ordered her cassette tapes. And then I got a little Walkman and I would walk and listen. Those really helped me. So for me, it was self-help. And then it was writing. And then it's an ongoing, and then there's a big piece to this. And I believe that for almost anyone that's dealing with anxiety and stress, especially if you feel like you have clinical psychology, like chronic, general anxiety disorder or acute anxiety disorder, is for a long time, I just thought, I want to find a cure and I want it to be over with. I want this over with. This is just too debilitating, too hard to live with. And when I finally accepted, guess what? I'm just more anxious than the average person. That just
The irony.
it's just how I'm built. And and research shows, by the way, for everyone out there who's dealing with it or has a loved one, because I believe everyone either has dealt with it or is dealing with it or knows someone who's dealing with it. Study after study shows it's very genetically based. So stop blaming yourself and stop saying, oh, I'm weak. I need, why have I not got over this? And so when you accept, yeah, that's part of who I am, and then you go on to find all the different ways. And I believe, for me anyway, it wasn't just one path. There was many things, and I do them on a daily basis. Trust me, I can I can go down that rabbit hole and get really anxious sometimes when I get triggered. But I just keep, I go back, and I have to say that just accepting that of who I am really helped.
I think getting to know oneself at this point sometimes is a privilege. Would you agree?
I agree, because some people are very busy and they're working to make ends meet, and that's where they are, and that is a reality for so many people all over the world.
Exactly. When your energy is just really put into putting food to the table, supporting others, and other personal reasons others or the listeners might have.
Yeah,
It's not like they don't want to. Sometimes they don't even have the time.
exactly.
Uh-huh.
Energy.
That's right. So thank you so much for sharing how you deal with your own anxiety or your own stress. So um I actually prepared a few more questions right here because
Oh,
personally, I am curious myself. I mean, I haven't been diagnosed or anything like that, but I believe a few listeners that would stumble with this episode might be. So, I'm trying to be as sensitive as possible, as
good.
factual as possible.
Yes.
So, any tips regarding, handling anxiety or worry, since we've come from knowing your personal battle with it? And I believe that you've mentioned that it's genetic. So there's really no point in blaming how oneself is weak. It's
Right.
also, I believe, aside from having it genetically, there's also a factor in terms of their environment,
Yes.
upbringing, trauma, and all that. But to add to that with
Yeah.
the genetics, and you previously mentioned that you've realized just really knowing your true nature would lead you to the path where you're most comfortable and happy and satisfied. And that knowing oneself is also another way of just really settling everything, when you mentioned about looking for answers, which made you more anxious, you came to a point to realize just it's just really me. And as you said, it's not a cookie cutter approach. It's not like
Correct.
the medicine that you have, the medicine that you take would work for others. So, any tips regarding how to better deal with it?
Yes, and just to go back to the genetics, studies show that it's largely genetic, but just like you said, it's not cookie cutter. For some people, it could be solely genetic. For some people, it could be genetic and environmental. For some people, it might have anxiety could just be environmental. So just so it's human beings are so complicated, and there's so many
That's
factors.
true.
Yes, yes. So yeah, that's true. Um, but so for tips, and I think a big tip, an innovative way is that, and I have seen research on this, and I know that it works for myself, and I've talked to other people that this works for, and this could be for the person who is so busy they don't even have time to read self-help books, or listen, maybe not even listen to podcasts, but is finding your AWE on a day-to-day basis. That doesn't mean you have to go climb a mountaintop and look at a sunset. It means connecting with something larger than yourself. And whether that means for a religious person, connecting to how they are with their religion, it could mean something as simple as this: looking out the window for 10 seconds and noticing the flight of a bird. And I know that sounds super simple and super cliche, but I know for me, when I go down that rabbit hole,
Yeah.
oh my God, the what ifs. That's the thing, right? So worry and anxiety is
Uh-huh.
oftentimes we're projecting into the future.
Uh-huh.
So ground ourselves in the present. And so there's two pieces to this. A good friend of mine told me about this. So we ground ourselves by our senses. What do we see? What do we smell? What maybe do we taste? What do we feel? So you could take a walk. You could just, even on your 2-minute break, do that. But going beyond that, and so the awe part, I know that even thoughts of connecting to something bigger, like I will, on my computer screen, I have the screen of the universe. So every time I open up my computer, I remind myself that I'm a tiny little speck on this tiny little planet in this, we feel like we're so big, but nothing is forever. And although that seems sad and morbid in some ways, but just reminding of ourselves, this isn't going to last forever. Nothing that we know of, okay? Because I do believe
Exactly.
we don't understand this bigger than ourselves. But,
Mm-hmm.
and again, this is super cliche, but sometimes when I can't sleep at night, I'll look outside the window, or if it's not too cold, walk outside and I look up at the stars. And again, it reminds me, whatever I'm worried about, I need some water. Whatever I'm worried about, so small. So I think that no matter how busy someone is, they can do this like so small on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, so like that's a personal experience for you. I also heard and read about, journaling on things that you're grateful for, so
Yes,
that
yeah,
the energy that you um spend on worrying, you divert into being grateful, and that the energy that you give off of being grateful is also the energy that will bounce back to you. So there are many self-help books out there that also discuss about this, being grateful. Also, meditation helps accordingly. So
yes,
for some it would work, for some it wouldn't. So going back, that everything is not a cookie cutter approach. So what works for
right,
me might not work for my other peers. And in the situation of the young persons that we house in the said supported accommodation, some of them are asylum seekers, so their experience aren't the same with those that are born and raised in London. So,
right,
which makes it all the more sense regarding their emotions, how they handle it, how they channel it, because um, some of the young persons that we house also have challenges they face that they cannot detect it as their stressor, or and in some way previously maybe they were misguided, or whatever it is that they've faced previously made them do some decisions that aren't the wisest to say the least. So some of which are of high risk situations. So that's why, mental health, not just physical health, not just the food that they eat, I think is more timely to be discussed. And I really think people out there that would stumble upon this episode can totally relate. And we are in the modern times, Tracy, where we are openly discussing this now. Because
right.
I know for a fact that eras ago, I mean, years ago, it's only a matter of being strong or being weak. Having emotions make you weak. Discussing your emotions make you weak. But right now, we now know that emotions should be processed so that they don't turn into something catastrophic, or you know it's only good if the emotion is positive. But for negative emotions such as anxiety, worry, it consumes people. And we are fortunate to know our true self, what works for us. But um I hope and I think the Conquer Worry Twitter account is also on the same page with me, when we hope that in some way we can shed some light, help them. And um, it also relates to since you're also an author, personally, I think you're really hitting two birds in one stone, doing what you love without really being so stressed about it. So I was just curious. I know that we've been really talking about anxiety, but was it a childhood dream of yours to become a writer? Although you have a degree in psychology, was that psychology?
Yeah, I have a master's in clinical psychology that actually helps my writing. And I was working on my hours to become licensed. And then I um, had my first child, and I realized that it was too stressful for me. I
Mm-hmm.
would take clients' issues home with me. I could not shake them off.
Oh.
For me, I realized that that wasn't serving, because I have some friends who are licensed therapists and they're awesome at it. And they have, uh,
Mm.
things don't just go inside of them and stay there. And I realized, for me, I just used it in my writing. So, and many people, by the way, that I went to grad school with did not pursue it. It's a very hard career to pursue.
Uh-huh.
But now I'm very grateful because it does go, it helps us. It helps especially with my fiction writing because I can go into the mind
Right.
of my characters
Uh-huh.
really, and I feel like, at least I think so anyway. I think it helps um, in my writing, and but I wanted to kind of go back to what you were saying about
Uh-huh.
emotion.
Uh-huh.
And I so agree with you that it's not good to bottle them up because then they just come out in really, they come out in ways where we get snippy and
Uh-huh.
irritable and angry, and we might not even know it. And I want to say having anxiety and thinking all those what if thoughts, I, for the longest time, because there, and I agree with you that it's the gratitude and the journaling, and it's really good to channel our thoughts into a more positive avenues. And I also want to add on to that we are not our thoughts. And all of us have
Mm-hmm.
negative thoughts. All
Mm-hmm.
of us have thoughts that are bizarre. And
Right.
we are thoughts. And because I think a large part of, like, a lot of people buy into that. Oh, if you're worried about this, you're going to make it happen. The self-fulfilling prophecy. Well, I really want to tell people with anxiety that is not true. You
Okay. That's
know,
interesting.
the bottom line is your actions,
Oh,
right? Line is your actions. So because you're thinking bad thoughts doesn't mean you're going to bring that bad energy to yourself or you're going to make it happen. Just take a deep breath and know that, because guess what? Let's just look at the reality of that. If bad thoughts made things happen, this earth wouldn't be here. There you
you
go.
have a point there.
So give yourself a break. If you're having negative thoughts, you can just tell yourself, that's a thought. Yes, it's negative. And then you can, like you, with journaling and gratitude, and personally too, you mentioned meditation.
Uh-huh.
I've tried that before. And then I just start thinking it's too hard to just be quiet. Oh,
Right.
but
I personally do not know how that works because when
I
I'm alone with my thoughts, it worsens. So I'm not pretty sure for others it works, but that's not for me.
I think it would take practice. I think that if
Ah,
I was more,
right.
yeah, I could get there. But I have to say this: there's apps, and on for anyone who has access to YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
if you if you in the search bar guided meditation for worry, guided meditation, then you can just close your eyes and they guide you. And I listen to these beautiful soothing voices,
Uh-huh.
and they'll, you're going down a staircase and now you're in a, this is just an example, you're in a beautiful field and your worries now take them and whatever, release them to the sky. And it really helps because then I can visualize all of that. So that's
Uh,
just for people.
yeah, I think that works for most people as well. And whatever works for you. I mean, whatever helps you, just go with it. And yeah, you have a point, and I agree with that. It all boils down not to energy, not just to emotions, but the actions that are the effects of the emotions that you feel or the energy that you give up. That's totally relatable. And it's really been enlightening, the conversation. I'm learning myself, you know, and now I can truly say it's not just for the listeners, it's also for me. And whatever you've said, I totally agree. And, from your career to having a master's for clinical psychology that you now use more on your writing, I think it also makes you understand people better. So That's also a purpose of that, I personally think. I don't know if you agree with that. And um, you know, what resonated the most in this conversation is you telling the listeners as well as me, that it's really about our actions, how we act in our emotions. And that a key takeaway also is that we must realize that dealing with anxiety, stress, and worry is not a cookie cutter approach because no one person is the same with any other. And it makes all the more sense that the solution, quote unquote, or the answer to whatever it is that you're facing or whatever challenges you have isn't the same as the others. Lucky for you if it's going to be the same with the others. So you already have a pattern in mind. But what I'm trying to say is that it's not going to be working for everyone. Whatever will work for you, for him, for her, for whoever, And I think it's also one of the things that our young persons can be able to relate to. And um, it saddens me that I have to wrap up this conversation with you, but I just want you as well to share any tips. Oh no, we've already discussed regarding tips, but I'd appreciate if it would be something more personal so that others out there can also cop up and relate and maybe follow your steps in handling anxiety, worry, and stress.
So just to wrap up about something personal, that I would say that my anxiety at a time was so bad, like on a scale from 1 to 10, it was 10 plus plus. And I had tried so many different things that didn't work. I had felt like maybe it would never go away. So I'm getting teary.
Oh
I,
my.
I want to share this with people, that if someone out there feels like there's no hope, there is. There is hope. And you will find it one way or another. You will find it. Just keep looking and keep your mind open, that there will be answers, and there will never be perfection. The
Right,
path
right.
will go one step forward, sometimes feeling 3 steps back, but then the next month, 2 months will be 4 steps forward. And gradually it does get better.
Mhm. Oh my gosh. Let me hang on those words for myself too. There is hope. I totally agree with you. And I believe that I've personally gone through getting one step and being so proud of taking that step. The next thing you know, you're 3 steps back. But that
Yep.
doesn't mean you can take the next 4 steps in one stride, if you know what I mean. So,
Yes, I
um,
do.
yeah. And I'm so glad that you've given us the time of this day. And before we go, I would just like to um, have more information regarding what to expect from you. I believe you're working on your second book. Would you like to shed some light on that?
Well, I'm in the process of self-publishing that right now. And what I'll do is, when it's released, I'll share that with you. On Twitter, I'll share that with you. But the first book, which was called, or is called, The Grace of Crows, it's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, on whatnot. It's actually about a woman overcoming anxiety. And there's a large part of myself in that book, just so you know. And I'm,
Just so the listeners are aware, they might be reading some parts. That is you there.
yeah. So yes, and it has a good ending, just so you know.
Thank you. It
Yeah.
makes me anxious to think if it's going to be good or not. And maybe some listeners out there would be relating to how I would feel. So thanks for assuring us it's going to get good.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate your time and having me on, and it was very kind of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tracy, for your time.
State of care.